all they can do is take, after it all happens, take in legal documents to try to see if FEMA can help people by giving them money to get back up and going again. So, right now I think we're just really distracted with the kind of stuff that, we are seeing. But we have to start, preparing, and the earth is getting ready to make some big transitions. And we may not survive it. There may be a lot of people who do not survive. And the other thing, too, is I know that the Navajo talk a lot about how after the fifth extinction part, or, they'll know that it's over and done with when the water comes up to, there's a certain line that they have marked on their lands. I think it's either the Hopi or the Navajo. And this is why they built their stuff kind of up and away, because they've been told a long time ago that the water will come up to there. The ocean will come up to there. So this is in Arizona, like Arizona, New Mexico borders, where this water, once it makes the transition that the water will be at, they say they'll have beachfront property.
We were there. We went to Las Mesa, didn't we? Mesa Verde, and watched and saw what was happening.
Yeah.
So there was quite a bit going. Do you want to take any calls from the audience? I think we had somebody who had something to say. Are you still here, Bob?
Hi, I'm here. It's kind of past. It was, I wanted to make a comment when you said that we're offending everybody politically, religiously. That means we're doing a good job. Anybody that gets offended at comments that are addressed at their beliefs, they don't really believe them, otherwise it wouldn't offend them. So, I'm saying, nice job.
Thank you. It's a good perspective to have. I want to remind everybody who's listening that they're on Steampunk Radio, more than likely listening to their TuneIn app, and this is the new way. I'm Dr. Lenny Thyme. I can be found at steemit.com/@LennyThyme, THYME. My guest today is Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff. She is a naturopath and a shaman, and I will allow her to give her locations, and then we'll continue with the discussion.
You can just find me on Facebook, Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff, I think. I hate Steemit, sorry.
That's okay.
Steemit has totally ripped me off. It's a cult. No, I'm just kidding. So Facebook, Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff, YouTube channel, Conscious of Economics and Urban Farm Project. And I have a Saturday radio show on Revolution Radio called Carrying Stones and Digging Holes at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's in Schedule A. So Studio A is where that's at. So this week I'm supposed to have a guy named Ken Scott on, who is a kind of a common law activist, and he's been posting a lot of really great stuff on Facebook about law and different kinds of law. So
well, that's where we've
be on my show Saturday.
Good. That's where we've spent most of our show today. Is we started and spent the first hour trying to figure out the relationship of law. So I'd love for you to ask him specifically how the common law can be used to recover our rights from maritime law, which obviously was superimposed without our consent.
Right. But this is the thing, is every person that's doing common law has their own documents, has their own path that they've actually created. So it isn't the same across the board. Like, for example, Bill and I, we've developed our own set of documents. We took the factualized trust from the OPPT, Heather, who is in federal prison right now, but she created some international UCC laws that govern the principle that we're energetic beings and we're free. So internationally, there are UCCs now since 2010 that are in the legal system framework that talk about us as living beings. And it's a really good framework of a document. But we took the factualized trust document and then we developed it more. And then we made a bigger area for identifiers, or presumptions, identifiers. And then we went ahead and added, so the factualized trust basically returns us back to and claims us as the original depositor, and also the trustee over our corporation, so that way we own the corporation and we take it back from the United States government so that we can use all the things that have been developed in the corporation, a driver's license, a birth certificate, now these documents are under our legal control. And then we created a power of attorney doc that goes into giving me, the living person, the power of attorney to legally represent my corporation, capitalized Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff, for any reason, any way, shape, or form. And then we went and we added an expatriate document on top of it. So, and then recently, I got my world passport, and then I got the world birth certificate as well. So that way I'm kind of like, now I have two pieces of identification that have my upper and lowercase name on it that have been, created, the world passport and the birth certificate. So now I have two legal documents that I can use that also further state that, I am the living person, Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff, versus, the corporated created person, but I have all legal authority over the corporation in my capitalized name as well.
Okay,
so everybody has their own thing. Judge Anna has like a huge major process of legal documents. People can file those. Bill and I wanted to do something where we felt like we were walking. We didn't have to go extremely one way or extremely the other way, like being out of the system or being in the system. We wanted to try to create stuff where we were kind of bridging those kinds of systems, because obviously some people, they need to collect their Social Security. So for them to like go into like a major, common law area, they would have to surrender, all those rights. But I mean, that is money that they sort of work for, so want to give them authority over it, but also, you should be able to use all the documents.
There's a lot of gray. There's a lot of gray areas and all sorts of legal concerns. We have another comment. Kenneth, you want to say something?
Yes. I'd actually like to touch on sort of how whenever we sort of perceive the law as our like maritime law and how it affects our reality, and also how the religious aspect of it all goes, they sort of clash. They in a sense, law uses words as an art form. So if you say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, you get punished, right? So I'm not going to state this is as a law, but I will say this is an insight. If you know what that word means, this is actually going to be empowering for you. This insight states that once we understand the insight of energy, that we'll both be able to receive as well as give energy. And that's mainly what they manipulate us off of. The attention that they gain from our, say, observing technology or scrying, or what I call it scrying is like being on a smartphone, being on a computer, being on a radio, or catching the person's attention. This draws a person's energy away, and it's a form of manipulation and control, but at the same time, whenever you work with law, like the law, they use different methods and ways to, manipulate our control dramas, as you would say, Lenny. And if you have too many control dramas running at the same time, you can be really zapped, more or less. And I'll try and keep this short. The insight states, whenever able to perceive that there's energy, and you give energy to that energy from your own reservoir, you amplify that outcome or that potential oneness. This works on in the otherworldly sense as well as in real life. So just like as if someone wanted to be on a better state of land, and they saw that there's a very productive farmer that needed help. If you address the person's needs instead of their desires or wants, you actually increase the potential of their needs being manifested versus feeding into or giving away your energy to the wants or desires. That's all I wanted to add.
Okay, thank you for the comment. Bridgette?
Yes.
How does one deal with energetics and law? Oh, wait, hang on. Bob?
I think, okay, so, yeah.
I'm trying to find out what the takeaway is supposed to be from the discussion, and I'm not saying this in a disrespectful way. I'm just a little bit unclear on what the takeaway is.
Okay, Bridgette. I'm sort of lost in the ramble that we just got. I was writing furiously about things, taking notes, and I didn't expect Kenneth to stop talking when he did. And so, in thinking about the energetic systems and the people that feed them, that's really what we've been doing for the whole show, is trying to look at legal systems and what's real, and realizing that right now we have 5 different overlays of structure that each operate in a different sense and scale, that all claim to govern the human scale, and all are running out of control at their own scales, to the point where human scale doesn't operate on 4 of these 5 systems of law. And the only system of law that I see that is actually dealing on human scale right now is the natural law. And natural law is, if a human does something dumb, he takes himself out of the gene pool. Now, I don't necessarily believe in Darwinian evolution, and I really don't believe in the construct of time and space as given to us by the physics that we have now. But I've come to the conclusion that the reality that we live in is a real reality, that our consciousness resides here, and I want to get to the fundamental value of law on an individual basis and rebuild a social structure going up from the human scale. And that requires listening to every individual human have their spin on the perspective of how things work, without necessarily believing or disbelieving what that person is saying. My thoughts are that in reality, what we're trying to accomplish is we're trying to take the left and the right and the whole muddle in the middle and step back from it and look at it as a whole and say, that didn't work, where do we go next? And I like where Bridgette takes things, because she doesn't take the world for granted as we have it, but she also doesn't accept the fiction that has been imposed upon us. And so, because of the levels of the different laws that we can work with, I've known Bridgette for a long time, and she knows absolutely what she's talking about, because if she didn't, she wouldn't be talking about it. And so sometimes we tend to hear something we don't like and we pick it apart because it doesn't agree with our beliefs. And you're totally dead on, Bob, when you say if we're offending everybody, we must be hitting their nerves. And the energy that we put into the show is set to be at a long, constant, consistent baseline wavelength where we're very stable in our self-image of who we are, so that we can't be knocked away from our own individual sovereignties. But I have some real questions about the things that are going on in the world, because things like this Mandela effect are physical realities that can't be explained by the knowledge I believed I had grown from a universe based on science. Go ahead.
So, yeah, there's just a few minutes here, but I want to add something else in. And I believe, from what Kenneth said is totally correct. Where we want to hold, in shamanism, it's all about where we hold our attention. Because only holding our intention for certain periods of time can you actually, present an intention that's actually going to attempt to manifest, depending on, the clarity. So, but this is the thing that people don't get in what's going on, underneath the legal issues, is that my teacher Bobido used to always tell me that the blood is the crystals, right? So it's a crystalline structure. It has crystals in it, and so it's our blood that actually is the receiver and the transmitter. So a lot of these, the thing I think that people can't wrap their heads around, and maybe why they should put some of their attention into understanding common law and moving into it, because it is a point of spiritual freedom when you just have, put everything together, that if anything comes at you from the physical world, you can just present them with this paperwork that says, this is who I am. I'm an energetic being, and you have no control over me, right? And here's the paperwork to prove that. You can read it over. Thank you. So a situation doesn't really escalate anymore, and I don't have to put any time and energy anymore onto what am I going to do if I get a traffic ticket? What am I going to do if the IRS comes after me? What am I going to do if all these things are going to happen? Now I have frameworks that I don't even have to deal with it anymore. I just put the stuff in the mail, hand it over, allow them to assess it, give it back to me, and then I'm on my way. Where normally an event like this could be, cataclysmic for somebody. Anyway, so the bottom line, underneath this legal system is there's a couple things that are happening to you energetically without you knowing it. In hospitals, they bloodlet you. So they actually, when they cut your cord, they'll let you bleed out a quarter of your blood onto the floor. Sometimes all that is taken up and used in ritual. Your umbilical cord and your actually, your personal crystalline structures are in that umbilical cord. And the Vatican, the fingerprints go back to the blood, the footprints go back to the blood, the original people. So probably everyone in your whole family line that's ever existed has some kind of blood pact with the Vatican, because they were born and they used their own baby's own blood to put the footprints in onto the document. And that's the way the Vatican did it. So the thing is that this whole legal situation goes really far beyond just, energetically not dealing with it or pretending that it doesn't exist. It goes to the simple foundation of your codes and crystals that are within your blood, and energy. I don't know. I could call them curses or spells or whatever else that you want that end up binding your energy. And at some point, you have to make a decision to release that. And there was this killer guy he was a rabbi. He was raised as a rabbi. He didn't want to do that, so he went to Tibet and learned Tibetan Buddhism. And then he went and studied with the Sikhs. And then he went over and he studied all over the world, like all different kinds of religions and practices. And he came back to being a rabbi. But one of the things that he said in this talk was so outstanding. And it's one of the main reasons I really decided to work on my legal paperwork and my legal standing and really define who I am. Who am I? This is who I am. Matter of fact, period, end of story. Was because he said that everybody that's ever been to a church or has been involved, who's given their power in the past to any kind of church or any kind of entity, even like a college or a school, should take the time to sit down and write a letter that rebukes that says, at some point I was involved with your church and blah, 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 and I gave you my power, and now I'm revoking, I'm revoking that, and I'm letting you know, in a letter, and signing it and having it notarized and sent to the church as a mechanism to also reclaim your power from, the physical structure, kind of a thing. And I just thought that was brilliant, because how many times do we go through really heinous situations with people, but we never really go in and reclaim our power. And it's always on our mind, it's always in there somewhere, rattling around, and comes up periodically where you could just sit down and say, I'm done. This is why I'm done. Wish you the best. Wish your organization the best, but this letter just to notify you that, I'm at this moment reclaiming all power, energy, attention, intention that I gave or allowed, to be used in any way, shape, or form. And I'm now reclaiming that and pulling it back. And I know that, when I messed around with some of the, shamanism arts and dabbled in them, just didn't really take them into really strong consideration. But nowadays, I'm a full reclaimer on multiple different kinds of levels and through a lot of my shamanism practices. If I'm in a grocery store and I see something that I don't like that rattles me a little bit, I'll make sure and reclaim any power that I may have lost in that grocery store as soon as I get out of that grocery store. If I feel unsettled, I don't feel grounded, once I get in the car and I start asking questions, it's like, yeah, my spirit says, yeah, that lady who was jerking her kid around in the store just really totally freaked me out.
Okay, let's
I'll
let
sit down and I'll reclaim that energy back into my body that I lost there. Because sometimes we don't even really know that we're losing it. But a lot of this stuff, when it comes to the legal end of it, I think for me personally has been a really important process, because now I don't give any power away to any of it outside of myself, because I've done the footwork and now I have stuff to present, so it's just a no-brainer. I don't have to think about how I'm going to deal with the ticket or if I'm going to be able to get the money for it or whatever else, because all those little events in your life are the biggest power stealers.
Yeah, now you have to deal with radio talk show hosts who want to talk on their radio show. Bob, what is it that you wanted to say?
I just wanted to mention, Bridgette is hitting on a very profound point where there's the old system is coming back to correct the new system that has veered off its track. And I believe that's from the rapid growth of the population. when I was born over 50 years ago, there were only 3 billion people on the planet. Now we've got over 7 billion. That's a very significant and rapid change in our population, and it's normal for it to kind of go off rail a bit, similar to pouring a bit too much batter in the container that you're trying to put in the oven and it spills over. So we have to come back and clean it up. And this is what I hear Bridgette is a part of the process, is to readjust what's gone off rail to put it back onto track, where we are respecting the fundamentals of life, like water. We are respecting the earth, as the land. We're respecting the air, and the corporations that have become an entity. And I agree with Bridgette. The countries have become corporations and a policing system to protect the elite. It's been a very chaotic period during this growth time, and there are individuals that are taking advantage of this chaos to profit instead of trying to help reestablish balance. And the irony of it is that once the earth gets damaged to the point where it's not habitable, those same individuals who are trying to gain from this opportunity will also lose. So they're playing the short game instead of the long game. But I also think it's really important not to fight fire with fire in this instance, and for us to realize if we are based on compassion, then the compassion should not be limited to any specific groups, because those groups will grow to be the same model that we're experiencing right now.
So this is one of the things that, because
Can I finish, please?
Yeah.
I just had one more sentence to say. We're trying to change minds where we need to be changing hearts. And this is what I'm hearing Bridgette is doing, is changing hearts. Sorry, Bridgette. That's it. I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say, something's happened, in the last 10 years as I work with because of a lot of the work I've done. And, I didn't really want to work in the physical world, like that was really never really where I wanted to be at all. But now I work with CEOs of big companies. Periodically one will hear about me, and I work with them behind kind of closed doors, and I help them to change, how their relationships are with their employees. I help them to have better conversations with them. Sometimes I travel there to clean up a lot of dark energy, like if they're huge buildings or whatever else. Sometimes I go in and I try to find better buildings and better areas that are going to support like a new framework. And I really try to get them to think green, to feel green, and participate in all the different kinds of structures that we need, and how companies kind of need to move. Like, you may not be able to change like how extreme your company, produces a chemical, but maybe you guys could also make a chemical that's not like a super chemical, that is helpful in doing something. And then slowly turn your company into where it's an employee share. So you're not on the stock market in public, but, the employees also have, the bigger standing in the company and the decisions. And it's amazing at like what little things can happen if you're dealing in the physical that can actually start changing things greatly in the future. And, a lot of Zen Buddhists or a lot of the native teachers I've had in the shamanism type arena have always said, we don't know what the outcome of our work is going to be until like 200 to 500 years down the road. So it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it, but it means you should do it, but you're not going to be able to see anything from it. You know what I mean? You won't get a direct outcome. But in the future, future it will be beneficial, and that's why we do it. We do it for the future, you know. So the Native people will talk about doing things forward for the 7 generations ahead. Well, they consider each generation 500 years. So that's saying, let's do this planet right, let's do this thing right 3,500 years into the future. That's their mindset and attention. And most of us on this planet can't hold our attention for more than 5 minutes, let alone hold a vision for 3,500.
I don't know. You're talking to a chat room that's been here for just about 2 hours right now, and we're all engaged and participating. And I'd like to thank every member of the chat room while they're here for being here. I know that when Bridgette and I get to talking, it's sometimes hard to receive everybody's comments, but we will do our best to make sure that when you mic in, we'll try and get to you. And this has been The New Way on Steampunk Radio. I'm Dr. Lenny Thyme. My guest has been Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff. We are pushing the borders of what we understand to be the limits of the world because we no longer stand under those limits. In my case, as a scientist, it's time and space. In Bridgette's case, well, Bridgette, have the last word.
Over and out.
Well, you see, one of the things about Steampunk Radio is I never know when we're going off air. And according to my clock, we're already off air, but according to the connection status, we're still on air. And so it just ended. I'm entertained by the end of the show because when it tells me the show's over, there's somewhere under 2 minutes left